He got fined for jawing, but the story isn't just about an $11,593 ticket from the league. It's about everything that bubbled up in a brutal Steelers-Bills game. Blood, injured pride, and a defensive captain who feels like the rules protect quarterbacks, but not the rest of the football players on the field. Cam Heyward was flagged and later fined for taunting Josh Allen after that Bills touchdown. The league's number for the moment? $11,593. That's the official line. The unofficial line is messier. Heyward says Allen kneed him in the stomach earlier in the game, and Heyward says he believes it was deliberate. The TV didn't give us a clear replay of the knee. It wasn't the sort of play that got chewed over in slow motion on every highlight, but Heyward saw enough. He described the feeling, walking up off a tackle, getting hit, getting jawed at, and thinking, that's not right. That's the frame. Now, let's unpack the scene and why it matters. First, the optics. Heyward and Allen had more than one exchange. They were jawing, shoving, and then there was the touchdown sequence where Heyward got penalized. In a game that ended 26-7 for Buffalo, the penalty looked theatrical in the moment. A veteran lineman up in a star quarterback's face while the cameras are rolling, and the NFL does not love theatrics that look like taunting. The rulebook is blunt about it. Actions that are intended to incite or humiliate are ticketed. The league handed Heyward a fine for the on-field conduct, and that's that on the bookkeeping side. But Heyward's reaction and his explanation complicates the taunt narrative. Heyward was not denying he had an animated back and forth. He's saying the back and forth wasn't just words. It was a response to a physical act he said Allen committed. Being kneed in my stomach, he asked reporters. Yes. Follow-up, did Allen do it on purpose? Yes. Heyward even quoted Allen as allegedly saying afterward, I had to do something to get you off of me. That's the kind of quote that, if true, reframes a penalty into a retaliation story. From a team leadership perspective, you can read why Heyward snapped. He's a 5-time All-Pro, a captain, and an emotional leader who expects physicality, but he also expects fairness. The quarterback protections in the modern NFL are extensive. Defenseless player rules, roughing the passer enforcement, and a cultural tilt toward preserving a QB's health. Heyward's gripe is basically, fine, protect the quarterback, but protect us from cheap shots too. That's a message a lot of defensive players sympathize with, even if the league won't always punish the alleged instigator. Now let's talk consequences and escalation. He was fined, not suspended. That's notable. The NFL tends to hand out fines for taunting and leave suspensions for things that cross a different line, hits that are flagrant, helmet to helmet, or repeat violent behavior. A fine is public censure and cash out of pocket. It's also a statement from the league. You crossed the line in behavior, even if the replay and internal context are fuzzy. Heyward could appeal the fine, and given his claim of being the one aggrieved, you can imagine his camp trying to push back. Appeals sometimes reduce fines or get them rescinded if the player's explanation holds water on review. Whether Pittsburgh picks that fight will say something about how strongly they believe their captain's version. There's also the human PR angle. Heyward's postgame comments, blunt, angry, and personal, add emotional fuel to what otherwise would be a standard penalty story. Fans love that. Opponents will frame Heyward as petulant or hot-headed. Neutral observers will see two big personalities clashing on a national stage. Either way, it keeps the game alive on social feeds, which is weirdly the modern afterlife for these incidents. And don't ignore the broader game context. The Steelers lost 26-7 and must answer bigger questions than a taunt. Their offense stalled, Aaron Rodgers was battered and banged, bloody nose, fractured wrist, and the defense didn't close. Heyward is a leader who's trying to draw attention to what he sees as injustices, while also using the moment to light a fire in his locker room. That's an old-school captain move. Call out perceived disrespect and dare the team to respond. Whether that motivates better play or just distracts depends on how well the coaching staff frames it internally. There's also a rules and culture conversation bubbling under the surface. Fans and players debate constantly. Do protective rules overprotect certain players while giving others license for cheap stuff? Is the enforcement consistent? The perceived inconsistency is what angers guys like Heyward. He's watched quarterbacks get tons of leeway, and he's seen plays where he thinks defenders aren't always protected from retaliatory hits. That's a messy debate, one the league prefers to handle behind closed doors, but each public incident drags it back into the sunlight. What does this mean for the Steelers moving forward? Practically speaking, a fine, some headlines, and maybe an appeal. If Heyward's voice rallies the team, it could be a rallying cry the next game. If it becomes a media circus and keeps the team talking about drama instead of scheme, that's a luxury they can't afford with a 500 ledger and playoff pressure. The coaches will want to contain it, and the front office will probably prefer it didn't escalate into an off-season headline about discipline or public feuds. And what about Josh Allen? He deflected with a veteran shrug. Maybe Heyward got him going a little. Allen's framing was classic. Competitiveness sparks fire. That's part of the game. For the Bills, that's fine. They won the game. For neutral viewers, it read as the old chestnut. The star avoids blame by painting it as mutual competitiveness, and the defender gets fined for showing emotion. That's the sort of outcome that wets the whistle of debate lovers. Fairness versus manufactured protection. Final frame. This was never going to be a neat one-sentence scandal. It's a snapshot of modern football's tensions, protection rules, superstar optics, and veteran leaders who don't like how the game's balance feels. Heyward got fined. He claims he was kneed. Allen smiled his way through the narrative and moved on. The league answered in the only currency it has for that behavior: fines. If you want the juice in one line, the fine is the headline, but the grievance underneath, a veteran defender saying quarterbacks get extra protection while defenders get penalized for reacting, is the real story, and it's not going away anytime soon. Cam Heyward was fined $11,593 for taunting Josh Allen, and the noise from that hit-and-snap moment hasn't died down. What looked like a short sideline dust-up after a Buffalo touchdown turned into a league fine, an accusation from one of Pittsburgh's most respected veterans, and a storyline that puts discipline, emotion, and accountability under a microscope. Yahoo Thetao, it happened during the Steelers' 26-7 loss to the Bills. Late in the second quarter, things boiled over after a play in which Heyward said he was kneed in the stomach by Josh Allen. Heyward was visibly upset on the sideline. He confronted Allen face to face and later said the contact was intentional, even quoting Allen as saying he had to do something to get me off of me. Replays didn't clearly show the kneeing, and the league did not fine Allen. Instead, officials flagged Heyward for taunting, and the NFL followed up with the monetary punishment. New York Post, there are two simple facts here. Heyward got fined, and Heyward says he was wronged. Those don't cancel each other out. Veterans like Heyward operate with a different cost-benefit filter. He's built a career on edge-of-the-seat intensity and ongoing confrontation with an opponent's best player. From his point of view, a perceived cheap shot on a veteran who routinely mixes it up in the trenches deserved an immediate response. From the league's viewpoint, taunting is an avoidable escalation that can swing field position and momentum, and it's the sort of public conduct the NFL polices closely. Clutch points. What makes this more than just a fine is the optics. Heyward is a 5-time All-Pro, a captain, and the kind of voice in the locker room whose emotions tend to be read as signals. When he says he's pissed and accuses a star quarterback of kneeing him, it reverberates among teammates, across the division, and in the national narrative. Allen's response was measured. He diffused it publicly by praising Heyward's competitiveness and framing the incident as part of the game's heat. That helps a superstar quarterback avoid a distraction, but it doesn't totally erase the tension on the field. New York Post, let's talk consequences on the scoreboard. The taunting penalty altered field position and momentum in a game where small margins mattered. After the enforcement, Pittsburgh got backed up, the offense sputtered, and Buffalo capitalized en route to a convincing win. That sequence, a personal altercation that leads to a penalty, then to a swing in field position, and then to points, is the exact sort of chain the NFL wants to discourage with fines. In other words, the league isn't just fining for theatricalism, it's fining to discourage actions that materially affect the competitive balance of a contest. Clutch points. There's a deeper layer to consider: quarterback protection versus defensive retaliation. Hayward's gripe touches a raw nerve with defensive players who feel officials usually side with QBs in borderline situations.